When Doris Brown walked into Seoul's most exclusive restaurant that rainy Friday night, she thought she was walking into a lifeline. A simple dinner, 2 million won, and maybe her daughter could finally see a doctor. What she wasn't expecting was to become the punchline of a cruel joke that would detonate an entire criminal empire. Doris was 32, a single mother in Gangnam who cleaned offices before dawn, served coffee until afternoon, and stocked shelves until midnight. Calloused hands, exhausted eyes, the kind of woman who spent her days invisible to the wealthy people whose messes she cleaned and her nights collapsing beside her 6-year-old daughter, Maya, too tired to dream. Her ex had vanished the moment he learned she was pregnant. Her family had disowned her for refusing to abort. 6 years of choosing between electricity and groceries. 6 years of borrowing dresses from friends for job interviews she never got. 6 years of watching Maya ask why they couldn't have what other kids had, and lying that they were saving up for something better. Doris didn't take handouts. She didn't trust charity. And honestly, she didn't trust people anymore. But when the elegant woman approached her at the coffee shop with an offer too good to refuse, desperation won. 2 million won for one dinner with a successful, lonely businessman. Just be kind. Just be yourself. What could go wrong? So here she was. Cheongdam Platinum, 8 p.m. on a Friday, rain streaking down floor-to-ceiling windows, her borrowed dress already feeling like a costume. She checked the address again, checked her reflection in a compact mirror, checked her phone for the third time. The message just said, "Private room, 2nd floor." He's waiting. Maybe this was legitimate. Maybe rich, lonely men really did pay strangers for company. Maybe she could walk out of here with enough money to finally catch her breath. The hostess led her upstairs with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Staff members glanced at her and quickly looked away, the way people do when they know something you don't. The private room door opened to reveal crystal chandeliers, silk wallpaper, and a table set for two. A man sat perfectly still in the center of it all. Dark suit tailored like armor, dark glasses concealing his eyes, white cane resting against his chair. His face was carved severity, beautiful in the way a knife is beautiful. He didn't turn toward the door when it opened, but something in his posture shifted, listening. Standing beside his table, phone angled just so, was a young woman in designer clothes and a smile that made Doris's stomach drop. The same woman from the coffee shop. Helen. And she was recording. Doris froze. The pieces assembled themselves with sickening clarity. The pitying glances from staff. The too generous offer. The way Helen's eyes glittered with anticipation, waiting for the show to start. This wasn't a date. This was entertainment. The man spoke, his voice quiet and precise. "Are you going to sit down?" Helen's smile widened. Doris felt something crack inside her chest. Something that had been holding her upright through 6 years of humiliation. Not again. Not one more person treating her like she was less than human. "Is this funny to you?" Doris said, her voice shaking. She wasn't looking at the man. She was staring at Helen. Putting desperate people in a room and watching what happens? Is that what rich people do for fun now? Helen's expression flickered, surprise breaking through the cruelty. "Excuse me. I'm not your entertainment." Doris's hands were fists at her sides. "You wave money in front of someone who's drowning and film them reaching for it. You set up a blind man like he's some kind of charity case and wait to see if the poor woman is grateful enough or awkward enough to make a good story for your friends." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. The man's head turned toward Helen with the slow, deliberate movement of a predator identifying prey. His voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper but carried the weight of buried bodies. "Leave. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, you're about to experience a story where love collides with danger in the most explosive way possible. If stories about fierce romance, impossible choices, and characters who fight for what they love captivate you, hit that subscribe button now. And don't forget to like this video. It helps us bring you more stories like this. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love seeing our community grow across the world. But I was just... Yow. Helen's mouth opened and closed. She looked between Doris and her boss, her phone still recording, her perfect plan unraveling. The man didn't move, didn't raise his voice, but something in his stillness suggested that arguing would be the last mistake she ever made. Helen grabbed her bag and fled, the door closing with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot in the sudden silence. Doris stood there, shaking, realizing she'd just screamed at a stranger who'd done nothing wrong. The humiliation was complete. She'd come here desperate, and now she'd leave with nothing and the memory of losing her dignity in front of witnesses. "Did she pay you to come here?" the man asked quietly. Doris wanted to lie. Pride demanded she lie. But exhaustion won. "Yes." "How much?" 2 million won. "My daughter needs..." She stopped. Why was she explaining? "I should go." "Sit down." "I don't need your..." "Please." The word was softer, almost fragile. "You came for money. Stay for truth." Something in his voice made her pause. Not pity. Not anger. Something raw and desperate that mirrored what she felt. She pulled out the chair and sat. His name was Kim Young. They called him the General in the Underground, though Doris wouldn't learn that until later. Right now he was just a blind man who'd been set up by his own assistant, sitting across from a single mother who'd been paid to humiliate him, and neither of them was playing their assigned role anymore. "Why did you defend me?" he asked after the waiter had poured wine with trembling hands and fled. "You could have taken the money and left. Instead you burned the bridge." "Because I know what it's like," Doris said, her voice raw. "To be someone's before and after story. Someone's inspiration porn. Someone's good deed for the day. I'm so tired of people treating me like I'm not a whole person just because I'm struggling." Kim was silent for a long moment. His jaw worked like he was trying to remember how to form words. Then impossibly he smiled. It transformed his face, cracked the marble into something devastatingly human. "Do you know what everyone in my world does? They tell me what they think I want to hear. They're terrified of me or they pity me and both feel the same from where I'm sitting. You're the first person in 5 years who's told me the truth." "What truth?" "That this," he gestured between them, "was cruel. That we both deserved better. That being someone's entertainment is degrading whether you're blind or broke or both." Doris felt something unnot in her chest. "I'm sorry I yelled at you." "Don't be. You weren't yelling at me. You were yelling at everyone who's ever made you feel small." His head tilted, listening to the rhythm of her breathing with unnerving precision. "I heard it in your voice. The exhaustion. The rage. The way you're still shaking because standing up for yourself cost you money you desperately needed and you did it anyway. How did you?" "I'm very good at listening. It's how I've stayed alive." The words hung in the air, weighted with implications Doris didn't yet understand. They talked for 3 hours while the restaurant staff cleared tables around them, dimmed lights and waited. Doris described her world. The sound of subway trains at dawn carrying her to work. Maya's laugh that made the exhaustion worthwhile. The chemical smell of industrial cleaner that never quite washed off her hands. Kim listened with an intensity that made her feel seen for the first time in years. He told her about navigating darkness, about building his life around sound and memory, about the particular loneliness of being feared by everyone who knew his name. He didn't tell her he was Seoul's most dangerous crime lord. That revelation would come later along with the bodies. Right now they were just two people who'd been used as entertainment, choosing something real instead. When they finally left, Kim asked for her number. Doris refused. "I'm not a project. I'm not something you fixed to prove you're a good person despite." She gestured at his glasses, then felt guilty for it. His smile returned, genuine and edged with something dangerous. "Good. I don't want a project. I want someone who'll tell me the truth even when it hurts. Especially then." Doris studied him. This beautiful, strange man who'd just paid her 4 million won to sit through dinner and be honest. "Why me?" "Because you saw me. Not the blind man. Not the boss. Just me." He handed her a card with a number in raised braille and ink. "When you're ready to see if this was real, call me. No obligations. No charity. Just two people figuring out if honesty is enough to build something on." She took the card. Her hands were still shaking but for different reasons now. Outside, Helen sat in her Mercedes, her phone still recording through directional audio equipment, watching them exit together. She'd captured every word of their conversation. Her friends were going to love this. The cold, terrifying general, vulnerable and almost human. The desperate single mother acting like she had standards. Helen smiled and opened her editing app, already planning phase 2. Make him look desperate. Make her look like a gold digger. Destroy whatever this was before it started. She had no idea she'd just lit the fuse on a bomb that would consume them all. In the restaurant doorway, Kim turned his head toward Doris's voice as she described the rain-soaked street, the neon reflections and puddles, the way Seoul looked when it was trying to wash itself clean. Neither of them saw Helen watching. Neither of them understood yet that some cruelty doesn't end with a closed door. That some people treat other people's lives like games right up until the moment the bodies start falling. But they would learn. Seoul was about to burn, and it started with a bet, a blind date, and a single mother who refused to be anyone's punchline. The man bleeding on the concrete floor of Kim Young's underground headquarters had made 3 mistakes. First, he'd borrowed money from the general. Second, he'd failed to pay it back. Third, and most fatal, he was lying about why. Kim sat perfectly still in the shadows, dark glasses reflecting nothing, white cane resting against his thigh like a coiled serpent. He tilted his head, listening to the debtor's voice crack and pitch, the way his breathing hitched on certain words, the copper-sharp smell of fierce sweat mixing with blood. The man's heart was rabbiting in his chest. Kim could hear it, a frantic drumbeat of terror. "My daughter," the man gasped. "She needed surgery. I swear I'll have it by next week." "You're lying." Kim's voice was silk over razors. "Your daughter is healthy. You gambled it away at the Macau tables 3 days ago. I can hear the casino chips in your jacket pocket." The man's breathing stopped. In the corner, Jae-sung, Kim's right hand for 15 years, raised his gun. One nod from Kim and this problem disappeared. One nod and another body fed the foundation of the empire Kim had built from ashes and rage. Kim raised his hand. "Not yet. You have 72 hours. Bring me double what you owe or Jae-sung delivers your fingers to your wife in a jewelry box. I'm told she likes surprises." The man scrambled out, leaving blood prints on the floor. Kim stood, navigating the space through pure memory and sound mapping. 47 steps to the elevator. 12 floors up to his penthouse where everything was precisely placed. Furniture, weapons, secrets. He moved through his world like a ghost through walls, his blindness transformed from weakness into something sharper. Most people lied with words. Kim heard lies in the spaces between breaths. 3 years ago, his mentor had put a bullet in his head during a territory negotiation, leaving him for dead in a warehouse fire. Kim had crawled through flames, his optic nerves destroyed by shrapnel, and survived on pure hatred. He'd rebuilt his empire stronger, more ruthless, eliminating every weakness, especially the weakness of trust, the feeling of being human. Helen Park arrived at noon with coffee and calculated sympathy, her Chanel suit and political pedigree making her useful. Her father was a minister Kim needed leverage over, and Helen played assistant like it was a thrilling game. She took photos of classified documents for her trust fund friends, treated proximity to violence like an Instagram aesthetic. Kim tolerated her because she was too stupid to be dangerous. Or so he thought. That night, Helen lounged in her Gangnam penthouse, champagne in hand, complaining to her equally bored friends. "Working for the general is so boring. He just sits there listening to recordings. So cold." Her friend Mina laughed. "Maybe he's lonely. When's the last time someone saw him with a woman?" Helen's eyes glittered with malice. Who would date a blind gangster? The bet formed like poison crystallizing. 50 million won if Helen could set up a date and capture the humiliation. She scrolled through her charity work photos, finding Doris Brown from a women's shelter volunteer list. Perfect. Desperate enough to take money, proud enough to make it interesting. 2 days later, Helen approached Doris at the coffee shop, all sympathy and kindness. "I know someone who could use a friend like you. He's successful but lonely. Just one dinner. I'll pay you 2 million won." Doris's hands trembled around the coffee pot. 2 million won. Maya's medicine. Their back rent. What's the catch? No catch. Just be yourself. Helen's smile was a knife hidden in silk. As Doris hesitantly agreed, the scene shifted to Kim's office. He was listening to a business meeting recording when something made him stop. A woman's laughter in the background, genuine and unguarded. He rewound it 3 times, caught by something he couldn't name. Jae-sung noticed his distraction. "Everything all right, sir?" Kim didn't answer. His fingers tightened on his cane. Somewhere in the city something was shifting. He could feel it the way animals sense earthquakes. A frequency wrong in the air, a pattern broken. Something was coming for him, and for the first time in 3 years, Kim Young felt something he'd forgotten how to feel. Anticipation. Doris's alarm screamed at 5 a.m., the same nightmare sound that had started every day for 6 years. She stumbled out of bed, kissing Maya's sleeping forehead before the chaos began. 40 minutes to get her daughter ready for school, 20 minutes on the subway to Gangnam where she cleaned executive offices before the executives arrived. Invisible labor. Invisible woman. By noon she was at the coffee shop, smile plastered on, taking orders from people who looked through her like glass. Her hands never stopped shaking. Exhaustion or adrenaline, she'd stopped knowing the difference. Tonight she'd stock shelves until 2 a.m., sleep 3 hours and do it again. 6 years of this treadmill since Maya's father had looked at her pregnant belly and said, "Get rid of it or I'm gone." He'd been gone by morning. Her family had followed when she refused to abort, their God apparently less forgiving than advertised. When Helen found her during her break, Doris was counting pills, Maya's asthma medication, trying to decide if she could split doses to make them last. Helen's designer perfume arrived before her sympathy. "I have a proposition. 2,000,000 for one dinner with a kind, successful man who's a bit lonely. Just be yourself." Doris looked at the pills in her palm, at Maya's prescription she couldn't fill, at the eviction notice folded in her apron pocket. "What's the catch?" "No catch." Helen's smile was poisoned honey. "Just dinner." That night, Doris borrowed a dress from her friend Sujin, the only person who'd stood by her. She practiced conversation topics in the mirror. Safe, boring things successful men might want to hear. Maya watched from the doorway, too wise for 6 years old. "Are you scared, Mommy?" Doris forced brightness into her voice. "No, baby. It's just a work dinner." But walking into Cheongdam Platinum she knew she'd been played. Staff glanced at her with pity. The private room was obscenely luxurious. Anne Helen stood beside the table, phone angled perfectly, wearing an expression that made Doris's stomach turn to ice. The man at the table sat impossibly still, dark glasses concealing his eyes, white cane resting against his chair like a weapon. Beautiful and dangerous and blind. This wasn't a date. This was a circus and she was the freak show. Instead of running, something in Doris snapped, 6 years of swallowed humiliation erupting like a volcano. She sat down hard, her voice shaking with fury. "Is this funny to you people? Finding the most desperate woman in Seoul and the most isolated man and watching what happens? I thought you were supposed to be successful," she spat at Kim, "not pathetic enough to let someone like her arrange your life." The temperature dropped. Kim's head turned toward Helen with predatory precision, his voice barely above a whisper but carrying the weight of graves. "Leave us." "But Now." Helen fled. The door closed. Silence filled the space like water rising. Doris waited for him to throw her out, to call security, to... "Did she pay you to come here?" Kim asked quietly. Pride demanded lies. Exhaustion won. "Yes. 2,000,000. My daughter needs medicine I can't afford, and I'm so tired of being desperate that when she offered me money to humiliate myself, I took it because at least someone would finally pay me what I'm worth." She expected dismissal. Instead, Kim gestured to her untouched plate. "You came for money. Stay for truth. Tell me about your world and I'll tell you about mine. No performance. No pity. Just honesty." So she did. For 3 hours she described the sound of subway trains at dawn carrying the working poor to clean up after the wealthy. Maya's laugh that made every hardship worthwhile. The chemical smell of industrial cleaner that never quite washed off, no matter how hard she scrubbed. Kim listened with an intensity that made her feel seen for the first time in years, asking questions that proved he was truly hearing her, not just waiting for his turn to talk. When they finally left, he asked for her number. She refused. "I'm not your project. I'm not something you fix to prove you're a good person." His smile transformed his face into something devastating. "Good. I don't want a project. I want someone who tells me the truth." He handed her a card. "When you're ready, call me. No obligations. Just two people being honest." Outside, Helen sat in her Mercedes, phone recording their exit, watching Kim's face soften as Doris described the rain-soaked street. Something twisted in Helen's chest. Unfamiliar, acidic, consuming. She dialed her friend with shaking hands. "Phase 2. Leak the photos. Make him look desperate. Make her look like a gold digger. This ends now." She didn't see Kim pause at the curb, his head tilting like he'd heard something dangerous in the air. He'd spent 3 years eliminating weakness, and in one dinner, this woman had found the crack in his armor he didn't know existed. His hand tightened on his cane. Jae-sung pulled up in the car. "Home, sir." Kim slid into the back seat, that woman's voice still echoing in his mind. Raw, honest, unafraid. "No. Follow her. Make sure she gets home safely." "And Jae-sung." His voice dropped to something lethal. "Find out everything about Helen Park. What she's been doing. Who she's been talking to. Everything." Because Kim Young hadn't survived 3 years at the top of Seoul's underworld by ignoring his instincts. And right now, every instinct was screaming that Helen had just started something that would burn them all. Doris saw the photos on her phone at 6 a.m., tagged by 3 people she didn't know. Blind Mafia boss's pathetic date night, with her face clearly visible, her borrowed dress, her exhaustion immortalized for entertainment. The comments were worse. Speculation about how much she'd been paid, jokes about charity dating, and one word that made her blood freeze. Mafia. She dropped Maya at school with shaking hands, Googling Kim Young-sol on the subway. The general. Underground empire. Suspected in 17 murders. Her stomach turned to ice. She'd had dinner with a crime lord. She'd told a killer about Maya. When Jae-sung brought Kim the news, he expected rage. Instead, Kim asked only, "Is she safe? Is her identity compromised?" "Her face is everywhere in certain circles, sir. Protect her. Discreetly. I don't want her knowing until I can explain." Kim's jaw tightened. "And find every person who shared those photos. I want names." Doris woke the next morning to find an envelope under her door. Receipt showing her back rent paid in full, a job offer from a legitimate tech company with double her current salary, benefits that covered Maya's medication. No note. No signature. But she knew. She stormed Kim's office building at noon, slipping past security by following a delivery person. Impossible in a building this secure, which intrigued Kim when Jae-sung informed him. She burst into his office, breathless and furious. "Did you pay my rent?" Kim stood from his desk, a slight smile playing at his lips. "Yes." "Stop treating me like a charity case." "What if I'm not?" He moved closer, his voice dropping to something intimate and dangerous. "What if I'm protecting what's mine?" The possessiveness should have angered her. Instead, heat flooded through her body. "I'm not yours." "Not yet." His smile widened. "Have dinner with me. Real dinner. My penthouse. Bring Maya. Let me prove I'm more than what those photos say." She should have run. Instead, she heard herself whisper, "When?" That evening, Doris stepped into Kim's penthouse with Maya's hand tight in hers, overwhelmed by the casual wealth. The view, the space, the chef preparing bulgogi in the kitchen. Maya had no such reservations. She marched up to Kim, tilting her head. "Why do you wear magic glasses?" Kim knelt to her level, his smile genuine. "They help me see in special ways. I can hear your heartbeat, smell your strawberry shampoo, and know you're not afraid of me." "Should I be?" Maya asked, curious not scared. "No, little one. Never." Watching him navigate his space with absolute precision, Doris realized his blindness wasn't a weakness. It had evolved into something almost superhuman. He knew exactly where everything was, moving with the grace of a predator in familiar territory. After Maya fell asleep on his couch, exhausted from playing, Kim led Doris to the balcony. She described the city lights spreading below them like fallen stars. He described the world through sound, traffic patterns, the rhythm of the subway, the hum of millions of lives intersecting. She stopped mid-sentence, caught by the way moonlight carved shadows across his face. "Why did you stop talking?" he asked softly. "I was staring at your mouth." His hand found her waist with unerring accuracy, pulling her close. "Then stop staring." The kiss ignited something desperate in both of them. 6 years of loneliness meeting 3 years of isolation, 2 broken people finding something whole. His hands mapped her face like he was memorizing her through touch, and she melted into him, forgetting every reason this was dangerous. Neither of them saw Helen watching through hacked security cameras, tears of rage streaming down her face. She opened her laptop, typing furiously, Kim's address, his business holdings, hints about his criminal empire. She sent it to every gossip site she knew. Her phone buzzed. Her friend Mina, Helen, stop. This isn't funny anymore. Helen threw her phone across the room and opened a bottle of wine. At 2 a.m. alarms screamed through the penthouse. Kim moved instantly, his body transforming from lover to weapon. He grabbed Doris, scooped up Maya, still sleeping, and rushed them to a panic room. Don't open this door for anyone but me. Through the reinforced steel, Doris heard violence. Gunshots, screams, the wet sound of bodies hitting marble. Then silence, more terrifying than the noise. Maya stirred against her chest. Minutes crawled past like hours. The door opened. Kim stood there, hands covered in blood, his suit torn, a cut across his cheek. Maya remained miraculously asleep. Kim's voice was hollow. This is my world. Violence. Death. People who want me dead will use you to get to me. Say the word and I'll take you home and never contact you again. You'll be safe. Doris looked at her daughter, peaceful in her arms. Looked at Kim, vulnerable for the first time, giving her an exit. Looked at the blood on his hands, blood spilled protecting them. Her answer would change everything. The silence stretched. Kim's jaw tightened, preparing for rejection. And Doris opened her mouth to speak. I'm terrified, Doris whispered, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. But I'm not leaving. Kim's shoulders sagged with relief so profound it looked like pain. She took his bloody hands in hers, leading him to the bathroom, washing away the evidence of violence with gentle efficiency. She didn't ask about the bodies. Didn't ask about the men who'd come for him. She asked only one question: can you keep Maya safe? With my life, he promised, and she believed him. The next weeks unfolded like a fever dream. Doris moved into the penthouse temporarily, though they both knew it was permanent. Maya adjusted with shocking ease, treating Kim's world like an adventure. She'd sit on his lap while he worked, describing the documents to him in her 6-year-old vocabulary, and he'd smile like she'd given him the world. At sunset, Doris would describe the sky, coral bleeding into violet, clouds etched in gold. Kim would pull her close and murmur, I see it because you see it. The romance deepened into something elemental, necessary like breathing. But darkness followed light like a shadow. A Yakuza lieutenant approached Doris outside Maya's new private school, his smile cold. The general has made himself vulnerable. Vulnerabilities don't last long in our world. The threat was silk-wrapped steel. Kim's response was immediate and brutal. The lieutenant disappeared. But the message was sent. People knew about Doris and predators were circling. Jae-sung cornered her in the kitchen one morning. I've known him 15 years. He's never been distracted. You're going to get him killed. Should I leave? Doris asked, though the thought felt like tearing out her own heart. Jae-sung studied her with sharp eyes. If you leave now, that might kill him faster. It wasn't approval, but it was acceptance. Meanwhile, Helen was unraveling. She drank at work, hands shaking as she photographed Kim's files. Shipment schedules, financial records, names of corrupt officials. Her friends staged an intervention at a rooftop party. You're obsessed with your boss's girlfriend. He's a criminal, Helen. Let it go. But Helen couldn't let go. The jealousy had metastasized into something cancerous, consuming her from the inside. She stumbled out of the party, mascara streaking down her face, and sat in her car with her phone glowing in the darkness. The encrypted files waited in her drafts. One click to a journalist. One click to the Tanaka Syndicate's email address she'd found in Kim's correspondence. Her finger hovered over send, tears blurring the screen. She told herself she wouldn't do it. This was insane. People would die. Then she saw her phone wallpaper. The bet night, Helen and her friends laughing around 50 million Korean wons back when she was winning. Back before Doris Brown had walked into that restaurant and stolen everything. I was winning until her, Helen whispered. She hit send. Both recipients. Message delivered. Helen dropped her phone and vomited onto her designer floor mat, alcohol and bile and regret mixing into a toxic pool. What had she done? What had she? At Kim's penthouse, alarms screamed like dying animals. Every phone rang simultaneously, a cacophony of incoming disaster. Jae-sung burst through the door, his face drained of color. Sir, we've been compromised. Everything. The files, the accounts, the shipping routes. It's everywhere. Media outlets and the Tanaka Syndicate. Kim's face transformed into something carved from ice and fury. In the bedroom, Doris emerged holding Maya, who'd woken from the noise. What's happening? Kim's voice was hollow, empty of everything except cold certainty. War. Outside the penthouse windows, Seoul glittered with oblivious beauty. Somewhere in the city, Helen sobbed in her car, finally understanding that other people's pain was real. And in the shadows, the Yakuza sharpened their knives, reading stolen secrets, planning their attack on the general who'd finally shown weakness. The empire Kim had built from blood and darkness was about to burn. And the woman he loved was standing in the center of the flames. Are you hooked yet? If you're following Kim and Doris's dangerous love story and can't wait to see what happens next, drop a comment below and hit subscribe. Let us know, are you Team Mercy or Team Justice? Chaos erupted like a bomb detonating across Seoul. Police raids on Kim's legitimate businesses, sirens screaming through the night. Yakuza strike teams hit his warehouses with military precision, leaving bodies and flames. Media trucks camped outside his building, cameras hungry for blood. Kim's organization fractured, lieutenants panicking, demanding answers, questioning his leadership. Kim moved Doris and Maya to a fortress hidden in the mountains, all steel and stone and isolation. Doris fought him at the door. Don't lock us away while you're in danger. His response was ice. You're what they'll use to kill me. I need you alive. Practical, not romantic. She felt the distance open between them like a chasm. Jae-sung tore through the organization hunting for the leak. Interrogations turned brutal. Techies traced digital breadcrumbs through encrypted networks. The evidence pointed to someone with high-level access, one of Kim's inner circle of 8. Trust evaporated like water on hot steel. Helen woke to her phone exploding with news alerts. Gang warfare. Police shootings. 2 dead. Her hands shook so violently she could barely hold her phone. She called her father, voice cracking. Daddy, I need to leave the country. Now. Why? Helen, what did you? She couldn't say. She packed with trembling hands and booked the first flight to Paris. Meanwhile, Tanaka launched his assault. Systematic. Brutal. A lieutenant Kim had trusted for a decade was found dead, his wife and children slaughtered beside him, a message written in blood. When Jae-sung delivered the report, Kim's face became stone, but his hands tightened on his cane until his knuckles turned white. In the safe house, Doris watched news coverage with mounting horror. A reporter mentioned leaked documents from an unknown source, showing blurred photos. She recognized the background, Kim's office. She remembered Helen's phone always out, taking pictures she'd dismissed as vanity. Her blood turned to ice. She called Kim immediately. It was Helen. Kim's team confirmed it within hours. Digital forensics traced everything to Helen's devices. Her real email, no VPN, amateur mistakes that screamed guilt. Kim's rage crystallized into something arctic and absolute. Orders, sir? Jae-sung asked. Find her. Helen made it through airport security, collapsed at her gate, breathing easier for the first time in days. Paris. Forgetting. Then she saw them. 2 men in dark suits positioned at the exits, not looking at her but blocking every escape route. She recognized one from Kim's building. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Gate 47. You have 60 seconds to come willingly or we make a scene. Helen looked around. Families, children, normal people living normal lives. Her legs shook as she stood and walked toward the men, her flight to Paris boarding without her. At the safe house, Doris paced while Maya slept. Her phone rang. Kim's voice, cold and empty. I found her. She confessed everything. The bet, the leaks, all of it. Doris's throat tightened. What are you going to do to her? Silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken consequences. Then Kim asked quietly, what would you have me do? Doris's breath caught. He was giving her the choice. Helen Park, the woman who'd set this catastrophe in motion as a game, now lived or died on Doris's word. In the background she could hear Helen sobbing, begging, the sound of someone finally understanding that other people's pain was real. Doris thought of the lieutenant's dead children. Of Maya sleeping peacefully down the hall, innocent and safe only because of Kim's protection. Of mercy and justice and the razor-thin line between them. She started, but the words stuck in her throat. Kim waited. Helen's sobs grew louder. And in that moment, Doris understood the true cost of loving a man built from darkness. Sometimes mercy was the cruelest choice of all. Helen collapsed in the warehouse where problems disappeared permanently, sobbing before Kim even asked questions. It was the bet, I was jealous, I didn't think people would actually die. It was just supposed to be embarrassing. Jae-sung stood behind Kim like an executioner waiting for orders. She killed Jin-ho. His wife. His children. 17 of our people are dead because of her stupidity. The organization demands blood, sir. Kim's face remained carved stone. He stood, leaving Helen's sobs echoing off concrete, and stepped outside into cold air. He called Doris, his voice clinical. Helen's betrayal cost 17 lives. Destroyed families. Protocol demands execution. Pause. But you asked me once if I was a monster. Here's your answer. I'll be whatever you need me to be. Through the phone, Doris could hear Helen crying. She thought of Maya sleeping peacefully, of the endless chain of revenge that had already claimed too many. If you kill her, does it stop? Does the Yakuza quit? Do the police go away? No, Kim admitted quietly. Then don't add her body to the pile. But don't let her walk away clean either. Kim returned to Helen, his voice devoid of mercy. You wanted to play in my world. Now you see what it costs. He showed her photos, Jin-ho's family lifeless. Warehouse workers burned alive. Children orphaned. Helen vomited onto the concrete. You live, Kim said. But everything you have is mine. Your trust fund pays restitution to the families. Your father's political career ends. I'll release every bribe he took. You confess to the leaks publicly. And you spend the next 5 years at a women's shelter actually working, seeing the life Doris lived while you played games. Jae-sung exploded after Helen was taken away. This shows weakness. Jin-ho's widow demands justice. The men think the woman made you soft. Kim's response was quiet but lethal. I'm not soft. I'm smart. Killing Helen doesn't save us. Repositioning does. We're exposed. We adapt or we die. Helen appeared on national television, mascara streaked and broken, confessing to stealing documents, out of personal jealousy. She named no names but confirmed the criminal nature of the leaks. Her social circle evaporated. Her father resigned in disgrace. Helen moved into the shelter, finally facing poverty's reality instead of photographing it. But Tanaka saw mercy as weakness. He demanded a meeting, surrender or war. Kim chose war. Seoul erupted in violence. Shootings. Bombings. Bodies stacking up like cordwood. Doris watched the news in horror, knowing this was because she'd asked for mercy. At 3 a.m. the safe house alarms screamed. Tanaka's men had found them. Information extracted from a captured lieutenant through torture. Doris grabbed Maya and the gun Kim had left for emergencies. The attack was surgical, professional. She fired through the door, hands shaking, and heard a body drop. First life she'd ever taken. They breached the bedroom where Maya hid. Doris fired again. The Yakuza soldier raised his weapon, smiling. A gunshot exploded. The soldier crumpled. Kim stood in the doorway, smoke rising from his gun, his face carved from fury and relief. He'd crossed a city at war, tracked the assault through sound alone in a building he'd never seen, driven by pure need to reach them. Doris stood covered in blood, not hers, holding Maya tight. She met Kim's unseeing gaze and said what he needed to hear, what she'd finally accepted. I'm done running. We end this. Kim called a council of Seoul's 5 families, proposing alliance against the Yakuza. He offered territory, concessions, survival. Some agreed. Others saw opportunity to eliminate a weakened rival. Then Tanaka's assassins crashed through the windows, automatic weapons spraying death. Kim moved on instinct, dragging 2 rival bosses behind cover, saving their lives. The shootout ended with bodies everywhere and grudging respect earned in blood. Doris refused to hide anymore. Teach me, she demanded of Jae-sung. He studied her, the woman who'd killed to protect her daughter, and nodded. She learned to spot tails in crowds, basic combat moves, the organization's structure. Not an assassin but never helpless again. Maya asked the question Doris dreaded. Mommy, are we bad guys? Doris knelt to her level, choosing honesty. Were people trying to survive in a bad situation? Is Mr. Kim a bad guy? He's done bad things to protect people he loves. Maya accepted this with the simple logic of childhood, and Doris's heart broke a little. Meanwhile, Lee, one of Kim's oldest allies, contacted Tanaka, offering to sell out Kim's location for control of the territory. He believed Kim was finished. Better to be on the winning side. What Lee didn't know, Kim had been tracking his phone for weeks, waiting for the betrayal to reveal itself. Kim fed Lee false information about a meeting location. When Tanaka's kill team arrived, they found an ambush, Kim's loyalists and allied families waiting. The Yakuza assault force was decimated. But Tanaka wasn't there. He'd sent only soldiers too smart to expose himself. Kim realized the truth. Tanaka would keep bleeding his organization until nothing remained. So Kim went hunting. Using the city's sounds as his map, subway rhythms, traffic patterns, construction noise, he tracked Tanaka to a penthouse overlooking Han River. He infiltrated alone despite Doris's protests. If I don't return, you run. Take Maya and disappear. The infiltration was tense, Kim navigating unfamiliar space through sound alone, avoiding guards like a ghost. He reached Tanaka's office. Tanaka was waiting, smiling. The blind man who thinks he can kill me in my own fortress. You've lost, General. Your empire is ash. Kim smiled back, deadly calm. I didn't come to kill you. I came to offer a trade. What could you possibly offer? Your daughter. The silence was absolute. Kim continued, she lives in Seoul pursuing her music career separate from your world. She's in protective custody. Not harmed, but held. Tanaka's rage was nuclear. You touch her. I don't hurt children, Kim interrupted. But I will make her world very uncomfortable until you withdraw. You wanted to use my weakness against me. Now you understand, everyone has one. In the car below, Doris listened through Kim's earpiece, her heart hammering. She heard Tanaka's voice, cold as death. You've made your last mistake, General. Then gunshots. Rapid fire. Breaking glass. A grunt of pain. The feed went dead. Kim. Doris screamed into the earpiece. Kim, answer me. Silence. Nothing but static and the sound of her own ragged breathing. Jae-sung was already moving, calling for backup, but Doris knew the truth in her bones. They were too far away. If Kim was hurt, if he was dying, she couldn't reach him in time. She grabbed the door handle, ready to run into that building despite every tactical instinct Jae-sung had taught her. Maya's voice stopped her. Mommy, what's wrong? Doris looked at her daughter, innocent, trusting, depending on her to survive. Then she looked at the penthouse where Kim might be bleeding out. The choice tore her in half, the man she loved or the daughter she'd die for. The earpiece crackled. A voice emerged through static, but it wasn't Kim's. 5 minutes of silence felt like drowning. Jae-sung prepared to storm the building. Doris couldn't breathe. Then Kim's voice crackled through the radio. It's done. Meet me at the south exit. Relief flooded her until she saw him emerge, bleeding from his side, suit torn but alive. Tanaka had agreed to withdrawal. The cost. Kim surrendered 40% of his territory. His empire cut in half. The organization fractured over it. Some lieutenants saw weakness. Others saw survival. Jae-sung addressed the council with steel in his voice. The general saved us. Less territory means we're alive to hold it. But Jin-ho's widow publicly denounced Kim, her grief turning to hatred. The fracture ran deep. In the penthouse, Kim sat with Doris and Maya, speaking truth. I've lost half my power. Some of my people will leave. We'll be weaker for years. He turned his face toward Doris. Was mercy worth this? Doris watched Maya coloring peacefully in the corner, still innocent despite everything. Helen is alive. We're alive. Maya still has her childhood. Yes. It was worth it. 3 months passed like a slow exhale. Kim rebuilt smaller but more loyal, shifting from violent expansion to consolidation. Less blood, still illegal but sustainable. Doris worked beside him, her outsider perspective finding opportunities he'd never considered. They became partners in every sense. At the women's shelter, Helen had transformed. The work was brutal, humbling. She saw poverty daily, understood finally what her cruelty had cost. When Doris visited unannounced, Helen broke down sobbing. I'm so sorry. Doris didn't forgive her. But she said quietly, you can't undo what you did. But you can build something better with what's left. That's all any of us can do. Kim proposed on a quiet evening, rain falling outside. Stand beside me. Officially. Not hidden. Not protected. Equal. The wedding was small. Korean tradition blended with practicality. Maya was flower girl, scattering petals with serious concentration. Jae-sung stood as best man. Some lieutenants attended. Others didn't. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was two broken people choosing each other despite everything. The reception was intimate, warm, almost normal. Then Jae-sung's phone buzzed. His face went pale. Sir. A message from an unknown number. Photos of Kim and Doris at the altar, crosshairs edited over their faces. An audio file played on speaker. Lee's voice, bitter and venomous. You showed mercy to the girl. Will you show mercy to me? Because I'm coming for everything you love. Kim pulled Doris close as guests murmured in alarm. He whispered against her hair, I've learned mercy. But mercy has limits. The scene cut to Lee in a dark room, loading weapons with methodical precision. On the table beside him, photos of Maya's school, her daily schedule, the route she took to class. He wasn't just coming for Kim. He was coming for the family. He picked up a photo of Maya smiling, her gap-toothed grin innocent and trusting. Lee smiled back, but there was nothing human in it. The general took everything from me. Time to return the favor. He loaded the final magazine, checked his watch and stood. Maya's school let out in 3 hours. Plenty of time to get into position. At the wedding reception, Doris felt Kim tense beside her, his instincts screaming danger. He turned to Jae-sung. Where's Maya? Jae-sung's face went white. She went to get more cake from the kitchen. That was 5 minutes ago. They ran together, Doris and Kim moving as one, but the kitchen was empty. The back door stood open, swinging in the wind. On the counter, Maya's flower crown abandoned. And a note in Lee's handwriting, come find her, General. Let's see if love makes you weak or strong. Kim found Maya unconscious but unharmed in a warehouse. Lee's opening move, a warning shot. He moved them to his most secure compound, but Doris refused to hide. We're family now. We face this together. Kim saw the truth in her eyes. Protecting her meant trusting her. He nodded. Lee stayed off-grid, striking at Kim's businesses, killing low-level operatives, leaving messages. The general protects everyone but his own. The psychological warfare worked. Kim's people were terrified. Lieutenants approached Jae-sung in shadows. His softness, his woman, the mercy, it brought this. Maybe it's time for new leadership. Jae-sung faced the moment of choice. The general made mistakes. But he saved us from annihilation. We adapt or we die with him. Loyalty but not blind. Doris studied Lee's pattern and saw the truth. He targeted emotion, not strategy. Use me as bait. Let me draw him out. Kim's refusal was violent, immediate. She countered, you taught me to survive. Trust that I can. After hours of argument, Kim agreed, surrounding her with every protection he could give. Doris returned to her old apartment, seemingly alone. Lee took the bait with 2 hired killers. What he didn't know, Kim was inside, having memorized every creak and corner, and Jae-sung's team surrounded the perimeter. Lee found Doris in the apartment, gun raised. You're the disease that infected him. Remove you, he becomes the general again. Doris met his eyes with surprising calm. You think killing me saves you? He's already here. Kim emerged from darkness like a ghost. The hired killers attacked. Kim dropped them both with eerie precision, fighting by sound alone. Every footstep, every breath, every heartbeat a beacon. Lee backed toward the window, gun swinging to Doris. Let me walk or she dies. Kim could take the shot. His hearing was perfect, he knew exactly where Lee stood. But there was a chance, small but real, Lee could pull the trigger first. Kim lowered his gun. Go. Lee laughed, backing toward escape. Then Doris moved. The training Jae-sung had drilled into her taking over, disarming Lee with brutal efficiency. He stumbled backward through the window, crashing onto the fire escape below. Not dead but broken. Jae-sung arrived, gun drawn on the injured Lee. Sir. Kim crouched beside Lee, his face unreadable. Lee spat blood. Do it. Prove you're still the general. I don't need to prove anything anymore. Kim stood, walking away. Hospital. Then prison. I'm done feeding the cycle. Lee's rage was impotent. He was finished. The organization stabilized. Some lieutenants left, unable to follow a soft leader. Others stayed, recognizing sustainability over glory. Jinho's widow, seeing Lee brought to justice publicly, softened slightly. Not forgiveness but less hatred. 6 months later, Kim's empire was half its former size but stable. He'd shifted to protective services, information brokerage, still criminal but less bloody. Doris worked beside him, her perspective invaluable. Maya attended school, guarded but normal. At a fundraiser, Helen, now genuinely serving at the shelter, saw Doris across the room. They didn't speak, but there was a nod of acknowledgement. Helen had lost everything but found purpose. Not redemption but change. In the penthouse garden at sunset, Maya played while Doris described the colors to Kim in the poetic language he loved. "You destroyed the man I pretended to be," Kim said quietly. "What am I left with? The man I actually am. Flawed, dangerous but yours." Doris kissed him as Maya called them over to see a butterfly. It landed on Kim's outstretched hand, impossibly delicate. He couldn't see it but he felt its weight. Doris whispered its colors. Maya giggled. In that moment they were just a family. But in a dark room across the city, a figure watched surveillance footage of Kim's penthouse. On the desk, files on Kim, Doris, Maya. A hand stamped a document, target acquired. A voice, feminine and cold. "The general thinks he's out? No one leaves our world." The family was together. But they were far from safe. The war had only changed fronts and new enemies were already watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The butterfly lifted from Kim's hand and disappeared into the fading light. What a journey! From a cruel bet to an empire nearly destroyed by love, Kim and Doris fought through fire to find each other. But that mysterious voice at the end? Someone's watching them and the danger is far from over. If this story grabbed you by the heart and refused to let go, smash that like button. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. Because trust me, their story is far from finished. New threats are rising, and this family will need every ounce of strength they've built to survive what's coming.